David.
Stuart, I would really appreciate not recording, 10 minutes of this and then you breaking Zoom.
It wasn't me, I promise.
Oh, really? Who was
Yeah,
it?
I I didn't do anything.
Oh, that's the problem. You don't do anything and now I'm just kidding.
What
So
if we
take
did
two.
what if we did a podcast where we just asked questions?
I think I think that's a great podcast. I want to highlight a couple quotes on the importance of questions, and then we're going to dive into this.
Okay.
I think one of the best skill sets you can have if you truly care about other people or you desire to grow yourself is asking good questions, right? Like it's not having answers. There's a couple TED Talks I want to highlight. One is on being wrong. Really good podcast.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing that was transformative for me from the way that I thought about being wrong as well was I think it was what's the dude that wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Beep? Was that I think isn't his name like Matson too?
I don't
Anyways,
know. I'll look it up.
I can't think of dude's name, but that book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a an F word, was really interesting because in there he talks about just how often we're wrong, which was really it was a really good just a really good thing to embrace for me when I read it.
Mark Manson.
Mark Manson. Uh, then there's a TED Talk on being wrong. I forget her name as well, but she's European lady. Can't remember her name. Really good podcast. And also, Mike Matt Madsen, dear friend of ours, did a podcast, and all he did was ask questions. Fascinating, amazing podcast. I would encourage anybody to listen to it. But Matt Madsen is his name, and it's a TED Talk that just is all questions. But just a couple quotes from some other really smart people. So Albert Einstein said, "If I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on the solution, I would spend the first 55 minutes determining the proper question to ask." It's fascinating. Uh, Another one is, excuse me, Edwards Deming said, "If you do not know how to ask the right question, you discover nothing." So effectively, you don't ask good questions, get content and comfortable in being where you're at, never growing. And then I like these last two. Actually, there's a couple, three, sorry. Anthony J. The uncreative mind can spot wrong answers, but it takes a very creative mind to spot wrong questions. I love that. Claude Levi Strauss said, "The scientist is not a person who gives the right answers. He is the one who asks the right questions." And then last, Drucker said, "The most serious mistakes are not being made as a result of wrong answers. The truly dangerous thing is asking the wrong questions." And I really like that. So we're just going to I don't have any questions sorry, I don't have any questions prepared, but I do believe that it is a skill set and there's practice in just setting your mind in a place where you just want to ask the right questions, where you want to, not even the right questions, just to ask questions, to be curious, to truly desire to know someone better, know them deeper. And that's every relationship, right? Every relationship we can go into, we can be curious and be other-minded. And so we're just going to practice. We're going to see where it goes. Just going to ask some questions and hopefully it spurs good thought and conversation for our listeners in their lives and for us, right? Maybe there's some questions that we'll reattack after that are like, Stu, I actually genuinely want to know. Like, for
Yeah.
example, like Stu, your mom and your dad, pretty good looking folks. What happened to you?
Amazingness is what happened. I know we're not
Well,
supposed to
you're
answer
not
the
supposed to answer
questions,
that
but
question. You answer the
uh
question. You threw your bias in there and
my bad.
fail. Fail within
The
1 minute.
TED Talk, I looked it up. TED Talk on being wrong. That was from Catherine Schultz.
Hmm.
We actually did a podcast a while ago on that TED Talk. I remember another one I wanted to talk about was the book The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. He promotes asking good questions and uh, spending some time in those questions. He calls it thinking time, and like make it a habit as a part of your like morning routine to do some thinking time. Basically, put everything away, ask a good question, and then just journal on it and just like write as much as like whatever comes out of your mind. And, you can really come up with some pretty solid business solutions when you're asking like hard, deep questions like that. So, uh, maybe put that into practice.
I like it. I
Are you
like it.
ready?
Are you ready?
No, but let's go anyways.
Dude, you just failed it again. You started with a question, I asked you a question, and we were going. Man,
Okay,
this is not going to be a successful
let's
podcast if we
start.
can't.
Who wants to go first?
Well, I think it's always safe to consider other people, and in that, I would like to ask you to go first. That wasn't a question, but I asked you to go first. All right, start now. Go.
What if there isn't a heaven?
Hmm. What if there is a heaven?
What if we were never roommates in college?
What would my life look like if I truly gave Jesus everything?
What if social media never existed?
Are all your questions going to be what ifs?
Why do we exist?
How long are people going to listen to this podcast if we have 30-second breaks between each question?
How can I think of questions faster?
What would my household look like if I truly served my wife?
What would our lives look like if we truly served our friends?
Would my relationship be more profound with my children if I was genuinely curious about their thoughts around problems?
What would it mean if success equated to a certain time spent with our family every single day?
How would my relationships look, my dear ones, but also my acquaintances, if I went into every conversation seeking to ask questions, not give answers?
What if there was a rule that you had to listen twice as much as you spoke?
What if I truly embraced one mouth and two ears? What if that was a little bit cheating because I just reframed your question?
What if cell phones were never created?
What if I did have a fax machine?
Uh, what if there were never any wars in the world?
What if I truly sought to know somebody based on the merits of their character and who they are, not what they look like or what they could offer me?
What if there was no judgment of how people made decisions and the choices they made?
What if I truly embraced the reality of the judgment seat of Christ? What if the questions that I asked were truly the outpouring of my heart?
What if I didn't have to drink coffee every morning?
What if I didn't have to pee every hour? How much could I get done if that weren't the case?
What if my kids never talked back to me?
What if my wife always agreed with everything I said and saw the wisdom in my in my words?
Uh, what if it wasn't snowing in April in Colorado?
What would my businesses look like if I truly sought the Lord before I made decisions to go forward?
What if I actually practiced the laws that were written in the Bible to a T?
Would those be Old Testament laws or New Testament laws or all laws?
What if I had to follow all laws written in the Bible?
What if some of the laws that you practiced were potentially illegal in today's culture? Why is it so difficult to offer questions?
What if there were only fiction books?
What if Stu's reading list would be zero because there were no nonfiction books?
What if there was no such thing as a podcast?
What if I genuinely sought growth, regardless of the cost?
Why do people think success equals numbers in their bank account?
Why do I feel like I am qualified and worthy to be a source of answers instead of recognizing the value of great questions? What does that say about what does that say about my character?
What if there was a rule that you had to give 20 hugs per day?
What if that rule existed and I was the happiest person on earth? Why does sugar taste so good?
Does sugar actually cause cancer?
What holds me back from being the best friend possible?
Why is it not easier to never argue?
Do I truly have other people's best interest in mind, or do I have an agenda and am self-seeking in my relationships?
What if social media never allowed you to post about yourself and you had to post about somebody else?
What if I truly practiced 100% ownership of my reactions?
Why do I get sleepy at 8 o'clock at night?
Why do you go to bed at 7:30 like a tiny little baby child?
How is it that I wake up every morning at 4 a.m. without an alarm clock, regardless of when I go to bed.
Why is it so hard to ask questions? Why did I repeat that question? What is it in me? How do I build the skill set around looking at other people the way Jesus looks at them and treating them accordingly? Second question on that is when I read the two most important commandments are love the Lord your God with all your mind, heart, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. Do I embrace that for my life or just expect it from others?
What if I truly knew every neighbor on the street where I live?
Why do my children smell so bad?
Why do I get so much joy watching my kids in sports?
Is it bad to desire to be myself and go fly fishing at least 3 times a week?
Why do I feel guilty when I leave to go enjoy things for my own and not at the expense of possibly others?
Why is it so easy to create, even create a workbook, an 85-page workbook around how to make my life better, but it's so difficult to actually implement any of it?
Is there an actual diet that allows you to lose weight and grow muscle and be really healthy?
Do I really care about being healthy? And what does the mirror say about the level of how much I do care about that?
Why is there always a gap between my values and my actions?
Do I truly have time to serve and be friends with everybody in my life? Or do I need to discriminate and discern more deeply on where I invest my relational capital?
Why do I get such a dopamine hit when someone likes my post on LinkedIn or Facebook?
Am I truly more concerned about how Jesus sees me or about how others see me?
What if you had to give a gift to someone every single day?
Do you truly have clarity around what you want out of your life? And have you tied that to a perspective that's greater than your day to day, perhaps eternity?
What if every American actually gave 10% and did a true tithe?
What if every Christian actually gave 10% and did a true tithe?
What if your nose wasn't crooked?
What if everybody looked the same and it was just such a boring, bland planet that we lived on, full of straight noses and whiteness? Why are you missing a tooth?
What if every person was missing a tooth?
Why would that not be a world I want to live in? How can I start investing more time and resources into those things that will last beyond this lifetime?
Why is it so hard to know and understand who you are and how God made you?
Hmm. Why am I so judgmental?
Why
Why
is
are
life
you
so hard?
so, why is life so hard? Is that what you said?
Yeah, why is life so hard?
Yeah. Why are you so dumb?
Why are you so judgmental?
Why am I so rude?
Why do you think you're funny all the time?
Why does my wife not think I'm funny?
Why does my wife think I'm really funny?
Hmm. Why is that such a great question?
Why are toots always funny?
Will I hear well done, my good and faithful servant,
Hmm.
when I die?
Why is it so hard to be vulnerable?
Why does the Bible tell me to rejoice always, pray continually, and give thanks in all circumstances?
Why does the Bible tell you to love your enemy? That's weird and hard.
And hard?
Hard.
No. And hard? Question mark.
Hard.
Uh, do I truly believe the promises, all the promises in the Bible? And follow on to that, what would my life look like if I did?
Why do dirty dishes in the sink bother me so much?
Why would you ask such a dumb question?
Why do I get so much satisfaction from mowing the lawn?
Why is it that I am not the man that I thought I would be or desire to be at this point in my life?
Why is it so inevitable that you will receive a wound from your father?
Hmm. And why is it so inevitable that as a father, I will deliver a wound to my children?
Why is it so hard to balance life?
Hmm. Some good questions, my man. Some good questions. Do you feel that do you feel that we can truly live a curious life and build our skill sets to ask good questions for the value of others?
What if Jesus didn't come back on Sunday?
Hmm. Why do I have so much joy in the fact that he did, though? Why do people not believe in Jesus?
Mhm.
Why do people believe in Jesus?
Why do we get old?
Hmm. Are you growing tired of asking questions on this podcast right now?
Are you running out of questions?
I don't believe that we can run out of questions if our heart is in the right is in the right place. What do you think about that?
That's a terrible question.
That is a terrible question. Uh,
What if I never learned how to write?
Um, I think that you definitely have not learned how to write based on
It's
your
not a question, David.
handwriting and the
You're failing.
terribleness.
You're
No,
failing.
it's going to come into a question. No, you know, it's interesting, man. I think you know, it is difficult. It's difficult to ask. I mean, and truly, why do you think that is? Like, why do you think it is that you get to a place where you struggle? Um, because I don't know if that if we were just offering advice or whatever, I don't know that the struggle would be the same.
I don't think we ask enough questions to ourselves, honestly.
Mm,
And to your point, like I think we are very quick to offer solutions, to offer advice um, to anyone. I mean, ask my wife when she brings me an emotion, a feeling, a struggle, a problem. The first thing I do is try to solve it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Instead of maybe asking more questions or just listening, either one.
yeah. No, it's good, and I think obviously a different kind of podcast, but what really has me, practically speaking, um, I want to revisit my, we've talked about a vision in the past and writing your vision down and all this stuff for your life, but I want to approach it from a different perspective and really, and I love the idea of, I was thinking about journaling when you talked about the what is it, the road less stupid or
We're a
whatever.
little stupid. Yeah.
The idea around the journaling, my journaling sessions, I think I'm gonna change it up because typically they're prayers that I write out and just some reflections. But I want to start with a question, and I really
Yeah.
like that, and start with a question around potentially what I just read, or this is I've not done it yet, but just refining the habit and refining the skill of I think we have such a desire to be respected and to be looked up to. I'll be honest. I was having a conversation with a guy today, and one of the things he said is he's like, man, it was a gift. He said, you gave me the gift of your vulnerability, and I was like, oh. And I'll tell you one thing, and I think questions is the same. One thing about vulnerability is, dude, it gets so much easier. Like as long, not everybody deserves. Not everybody, no, I shouldn't say deserves. You shouldn't pass out vulnerability just because then it's a different kind of thing and it shouldn't be every conversation. I don't think, right? Not
Right.
everybody deserves my just being open. But if I feel led to share something, especially if I feel like that person maybe is in the same struggle as I am, and then we can be together in that conversation, there's a blessing and a gift in that for sure that I receive as well. But I think questions is very similar in the sense of it gets easier, right? Like if I am genuinely curious, and one of the things that came out in that conversation, I didn't really think about this, but it's something that you and I were talking through. I told this guy, I was like, dude, you know what? I used to think I wanted to be on a stage and talking about this stuff, right? And what I'm realizing lately is I've given more time to one-on-one conversations and going deep with individuals. I'm realizing that could be where God truly wants me in that moment because of the depth of the relationship, but also like people are hurting, dude. And people aren't asked enough questions around their pain.
Mm.
And even fewer people are listened to or given the opportunity to express those things and have somebody just sit there and be like, I just want to, I'm here for you. I'm just here to listen. There's no judgment. And I'm not even going to give you an answer. I'm just here to listen to you. And dude, that could be that is not can be. That has been a huge blessing for me and for others that I've seen, in our circles. Because it's missing so much because everybody wants to throw out their opinion. I mean, you see it everywhere, right? Everybody's got an opinion about religion, politics. I mean, and it tends to be strong and it tends to be, quite often extreme.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, how do you reverse that, and how do you make the difference one person at a time of just listening? And I think questions is a great way to really get after, like, man, that conversation was really good, and and I feel amazing about it because somebody just listened to me. How are you on the other side of that? How do you position yourself to be on the other side of that?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I've noticed that's been powerful inside the Kinetic Man is, when we do these hot seats and we just give the opportunity to someone to just speak their mind and be vulnerable and real and open up to whatever is going on in their lives. And, I think there are some offers of advice and thoughts from the other men inside the group, but I think more than anything, it's just a place where you can kind of release, and allow for a space for people to listen and yeah, ask questions, right? And get you thinking differently about certain situations. And it's a really powerful thing when you open up in a room uh, and be real. And then on the other side of that, guys that are just genuinely asking questions because they care about them, right? Because they love them. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, man. Well, and also, I mean, maybe we should practice the habit of asking permission before we start giving advice or point,
Mm,
right? Like asking permission to, hey, do you mind if I speak? Do you mind if I speak into that? Because sometimes, man, and be discerning in that, because sometimes just listening is really what's required. And if you find yourself, there's an interesting exercise that we did. You had to, whether your comment or question after someone spoke, whether you were asking a comment or sorry, asking a question or giving a comment, it had to start with the last letter of the last word they said. And so what that really did is slows everything down, but also you're tuned in. You're like dialed in because you're listening because you don't know when this is going to be their last word, and you have to start your whatever what you're saying with the last letter of the last word they say. But what a thoughtful exercise, because oftentimes we're just waiting for somebody to finish talking,
and you
right?
already have an
You,
answer
you already,
planned.
you're already, and I'll tell you, even in asking these questions, one of the challenges that I wanted to be present to listen for your question, but I knew I had a question coming up, so I started thinking about a question. So I
Yeah.
didn't really listen to your question. And
Thanks a lot.
yeah, I'm sure you didn't do that. But it's very, it just, if we want to be good at this, if we want to be better at it, there are little things that we can do tactically. And like that's one, because sometimes if you don't have an answer prepared and you have to think through it, like the person appreciates that thoughtfulness as well. You can even address the silence and be like, hey, that was really impactful. I'm just trying to unpack that a little bit,
Yeah.
right? And there's a level of depth to that, instead of like, when people are waiting for you to finish talking. And I do it, I do it too. I'm like, all right, here's what I'm gonna say. And dude, there's not a lot of depth in that. That's about you. That's about you.
Well,
And it's
another
not about them. Like right now,
another
you're talking
powerful
right
answer.
over me. I'm just totally joking.
Another powerful answer is I don't know.
Mm, yep. And being okay with that.
Being okay
Because
with
the
that.
chances are 90% of the time you don't know, right? Like you really don't know. And that's why I found, we saw this in the Kinetic Man. There were some things, I had some really deep conversations around some things I was working through, and it was insightful for me as well because I throw something out in the group, and the people that I hadn't talked to at depth around these things had advice, And I was like, yeah, that great advice, but not applicable to me. And they were just trying to help, and nothing bad about that. But what it did is it really made me reflect on, ooh, okay. There are a lot of times when I offer advice and I don't know the full context. I haven't asked the right questions. I haven't gone deep enough. And so, to the benefit of the group, that's awesome because that can be ideas that other dudes are taking on. But when you're one-on-one, you should be really conscious of that. Like, do you understand the full story?
Right.
Right? There's a book, the guy that wrote Black Swan, is it Nasiri? Man, I'm terrible with authors' names today. But who wrote The Black Swan? Have you read that book?
I have. It's been a long time.
Yeah, Lebanese dude. Good, good, good book.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, awesome. But he wrote a book called, I think it's called Skin in the Game. Dude, it was really good because where he was coming from,
Nassim
part
Taleb.
Nassim Taleb. Um, I said Nasiri. I'm like thinking of Justin Nasiri. Nassim Taleb. Anyways, in that book, one of the things that really stuck with me, he said, "Hey, you have to be really careful with the advice you receive because most people offering that advice have no skin in the game, right?
Mm,
So a lot of people are quick to be like, "Oh, you need to leave that person. You need a divorce. You need this. You need that. You need." And after that advice comes out, there's no consequences for their life. There's no implications for their life on the decision you make. And you have to understand that. And if you can preempt that with your own advice, questions, whatever, the skin in the game that you have, if you can preempt that and recognize, hey, if I give advice, I need to recognize that if they take that advice, the implications are all in their life. And I need to feel responsible for that. And so I should really be conscious of what I say and throw out there and be very sensitive to the idea around, hey, they very well may take your advice. And is that really what you wanted to do or what you wanted to what you would do if you were in their situation? Oftentimes slowing that down and asking more questions enables you to get to a place to really be able to pour into somebody. So
it's
anyhow,
good stuff, man. Yeah, it's something that I definitely need to practice more of is talking less, listening more, asking more questions. And
yeah. Often what we're offering is a band-aid on a huge wound if we're not really, and then we check that block. Like I feel great. I gave them advice. I think it was good. And I'll tell you, what I do now when I go into whether it's a forum, a TKM meeting, a one-on-one, I try intentionally before I go into it, open my hands. God, what do you want to say through this? And dude, what's really been fascinating about it, it also removes all the pressure. Like I feel no pressure to give any of these people a nugget. I used to feel like, oh man, I gotta offer them something, or else it's a
right.
failure, right? And now I go and I'm like, and I tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm not here to offer you anything. I'm here to offer you an ear. I'm here to be used by the Holy Spirit. And if He guides this conversation a certain way, and I'm also here to learn from you. And dude, like zero pressure. It's been amazing. And not that I'm
Love
great
that.
at it, and not that I'm, that's not a tooting my own horn because I struggle mightily with plenty in that, but the amount of pressure that comes off of it is pretty incredible.
It's good stuff, man. Ask more questions.
Ask more questions. Ask more questions. I hope you have a good day.
Question mark?
Question mark. I'm Ron Burgundy. All right, homie.
Bye?
Bye. I love you.
Yeah?